Good afternoon. I know I'm the last person speaking today, right? I drew the short straw. Normally I would say save the best to last, but after seeing that last interview and the last panel, I think not actually. So I won't take too much of your time. A few slides, it won't be death by PowerPoint, don't worry, and then we'll go into the panel discussion. So this is just really setting some of the scenes. I'm really happy in the last, in that interview just gone now and the previous panel, that people started talking more than just sustainability, right? We talk about ESG, and the majority of discussions I see in the industry relates ESG to sustainability and decarbonisation. It's a whole lot more. The IMO have got 17 sustainable development goals. We reckon there's about, well, there's 15 of those apply to our industry, marine. A couple of comments have been made. Nowadays, people are looking and seeing how you are complying with ESG. And I think gone are the days where you could do on your annual reports, you report yourself. They are looking for third-party verification to make sure that you're complying with your ESG plans. So it's really important. It looks at the environment, society, economics. And of course, decarbonisation is a huge part of it. We all know that massive challenge going to 2030 and to 2050. So how do we think it affects marine? Which of those goals does it affect marine? Certainly, there's 15 of them that affect us. There's the underwater, when we look at clean oceans, marine pollution prevention, and carbon sequestration as well. I think some of you may be surprised of how many of these, and I'm not going to go into all of them because you'll be bored and you'll be waiting for your glasses of wine, but I just want to raise the fact that there's a lot that affects us on the ESG journey. And somebody mentioned it this morning. It's a journey. It's not a goal, and there's no end to that journey. You carry on along that journey. And I'm going to highlight in a minute on some of the issues that we have seen as we've spoken to companies on that sustainability journey. So when we just look at ESG, you know, there again, those development goals, they fall straight under environment, social and governance. I was delighted to hear the chair of Offshore this morning talk around the efficiency. Again, I don't think we look at the efficiency as close as what we should. And that can give really good savings, as Offshore overviewed this morning. But there's all the other aspects, E, the S, the G. Do not forget each of those. Yes, decarbonisation, really important, but don't forget about all those other bits. You have to ask yourself why. Why am I going to go along this journey? I mentioned before, it's a journey, and you will not come to a finish post. You'll carry on during that journey for continuous improvement in ESG. You need to define the scope. Each scope is going to be different, and set your baseline clear. You define your strategy and plan the trajectory. It's really important you communicate that with your staff and your external stakeholders. You communicate clearly the journey you are going to go on. Then you set clear measurements and you adapt and you follow that journey along. You have to get on board all of your staff. Don't just rely on one or two people saying, you know, we're complying with ESG. It can be a culture change. We see very few companies with a chief sustainability officer. Those who we see with a chief sustainability officer and they sit on the top exec team, they will be more successful than those that don't. So some of the pitfalls we've seen, some of the main tensions we've seen internally within organisations. The purpose hasn't been clearly defined. It's given confusion, both internally and to your external stakeholders as well. Getting the right talent. I'm sure all of you here are suffering the same issue that I'm suffering about getting the right talent. And I plead to Singapore to please make it easier to get EPs to bring talent in. We had the MPA across in Paris a few weeks ago, to talk about how we can work together. We talked about talent development, and I said to MPA, please make it easier. And they said, we are making it easy. I said, you need to promote that more, right? Because people I talk to, they're worried about their renewals, and if you're trying to bring talent into Singapore, they're worried they won't get the EP. So we have to make sure we're attracting the right people. It's a talent race. Those of you who are recruiting at the moment will realize it's a real talent race. Are the processes in place right? Do you have the right enablers? You need to have the right enablers to ensure success during that journey. And do you have the right structure internally? I mentioned about the role of the Chief Sustainability Officer. It's really important. And of course, setting the KPIs is really important. The SDG 13, I think it's a very important one. We've talked about it a lot today, about the maritime decarbonisation. And we go through the route, going through from 2030 to 2050. We know what the short-term measures are, the mid-term measures, and the long-term measures. Again, I was really encouraged about Offshore. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. You know, I encourage all of the owners to look at the efficiencies. It will really make a difference for you. We look about the mid-term measures, looking at alternative fuels, operational efficiency again, looking at new innovation and technology. Do not divorce data, digital innovation from decarbonisation. It's really important that they've got a place and they're all joined up as well. And what fuels are we going to use in the future? It's going to be really interesting. From a class perspective, class societies are issuing class notations. For Bureau Veritas, we have 2 class notations relating to ESG, Sustainable Ship 1 and Sustainable Ship 2. Sustainable Ship 1 just confirms to stakeholders and to the owners that they comply with all the statutory requirements and the other requirements as well. Whereas if they go to opt for Sustainable Ship 2, that's going over and above the level of compliance. And that's where you should be aiming to achieve high level of success on ESG. Go into that second level. Don't just comply with the bare minimum. Take it up to the next level. We've talked about the fuels today. I was hugely encouraged when we were talking about nuclear, right? Nuclear's becoming more and more on the table. The technology is there. Different stakeholders to talk about when we talk about nuclear. Down in Australia, we've been working with the Australian Navy about their nuclear submarines. And now the public's starting to realise they're going to build nuclear submarines in Adelaide. Whole different story to manage that expectation of the stakeholders. We know about carbon neutral, carbon zero, hydrogen, ammonia. My big concern is, where do we get the green ammonia and where do we get the green hydrogen from? Andrew Forrest, the chairman of FFI, FMG, in New York last week, was proudly saying that he's going to invest $6 billion in achieving his ambition to be the biggest exporter of green ammonia and turn FMG, FFI into a green organisation. That's a big statement, isn't it? It's a big statement, it's a big investment, and you can't do it by themselves. We've talked about collaboration so much. I think far too often we've talked about tank to wake. We now do talk about well to tank as well, but we need to look across that whole value chain, well to wake. If we don't do that, we're kidding ourselves on the decarbonisation. We'll have to look across the whole area. We had a workshop recently on ammonia, and the question of pink ammonia came up. So again, that was the first discussions of using nuclear. I think nuclear is going to play a part in the future at some stage for us. And finally, before we go to the panel, these are my 5 pillars I think we need to work on to achieve success. If you've heard me talk about before, I make no apologies because I think they are so important. Technology, hugely important. We have to work in tandem with innovation and data and digital. Policy, hugely important. We heard the plea to the IMO, please keep up. You know, those of you who have sat in that IMO, you'll have seen how frustrating it can be when you have those 197 odd governments in there trying to agree a policy. And the track record hasn't been great. So we need to work with IMO, we need to urge them to move faster, keep up with the pace of technology change. Finance, hugely important, as we've just talked about as well. The social aspects become more and more important. When we look at here in Singapore, on the studies being done for bunkering for ammonia, we know what the risks are with ammonia. It's toxic. It's poisonous. So if there's a release of those alternative fuels, it can be dangerous. So we have to manage those social expectations. And of course, the last one, collaboration. Collaboration, I'm going to go 4 times for collaboration and beat the Archibald guy when he said 3 times about efficiency. Collaboration, 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 and collaboration. One more for good luck, collaboration. We'll never achieve it by ourselves. And it's great to see people starting to work together. And I encourage you all to work together. And I think what's great in Singapore, with the MPA, the SSA, the way they are encouraging people to work together. I only wish other governmental bodies would do the same. So that was just setting the scene for the panel. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Maybe we can go to the panel now, Kevin.
Great. Okay, the panel can come up, please. Can I sit with